Hey guys, and welcome back to week 2. Pat on the back for getting through week 1. Now we move into the real stuff. Okay, so with this lecture, I just wanted to go through and kind of talk you through the PowerPoint, just in case some of it was hard to understand, or, use shorthand, that sort of thing, for my benefit. My computer's hella old, so I'm just gonna click through it rather than being in presentation mode. Sorry if that really annoys anyone, um, but it is what it is. We work with what we have. Okay, so this week I wanted to kind of introduce the concept of research, building stories, and finding informed solutions. So this is going to jump us into thinking about topic ideas, thinking about research, thinking about how can we notice a problem and articulate questions about it, and then get to the stage where it's an actual piece of research writing that we have done. So if you were in my Word 110 class last semester, you might recognize the Catherine Savini essay that this PowerPoint covers, but that, whenever I say Savini or looking for trouble, that's the essay I'm talking about, and you're also reading that for homework this week. So I do recommend reading that essay before you get into this PowerPoint and lecture. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is everyday research. And this is where in our everyday lives, we are constantly doing research. We're constantly identifying problems and finding informed solutions, which is exactly what we're going to be doing in the projects in this class. So for example, this is a very simple example. We go through this research process pretty much every time that we want to eat dinner, for example. We notice that we're hungry. We come to the realization that, yes, I would like to go get dinner, but I don't know where to go. That's my problem. My problem is I don't know where I want to go to get dinner. I don't know what I want to do for dinner. So then I start thinking about all of these questions. What kind of food do I want? Where have I already eaten recently? Do I want to drive far? What's my price range? And then I do some Googling based on those questions. I might look at the Yelp, even though the restaurants in Lexington don't change hardly ever. I might, look at how many dollar signs these restaurants are, whether or not they do carry out, whether or not they do delivery. So I do some research on Google. I think about what are the stakes here. Well, my attention span, my level of hangriness, my wallet, all those things are at stake. And also, right now, I'm considering that takeout at restaurants is helping those impacted by COVID-19. It might keep them afloat. So based on all of that, I make an informed decision to solve my problem. And let's say, for example's sake, my solution is to go to Ramsey's. P.S. If you're in Lexington and you haven't had Ramsey's yet, you should, because they serve the best dang pie in the whole entire city. Okay, so that's a really simplistic example. Let's look at a bit more of a complex example of this research process that is something that you might do in your, hopefully not, but it is something that normal people would do and maybe not think of it as research. So the steps. First, I might notice that my professor, my male professor, calls his female students honey. He comments on their appearances. He finds excuses to touch them throughout class. So then I tell my roommate and I begin to articulate what exactly this problem is. These actions by this professor are inappropriate for a professor-student relationship. I then ask questions. What kind of protections do students have against this kind of behavior? Who could I talk to about this? Why are the comments inappropriate? How do those actions make me feel? I might debate with my roommate about what to do because there's a lot at stake. My grade in the class, if he were to find out that I told people, my classmates' mental health and safety, my female classmates' mental health and safety, if I don't tell, my professor's job is at stake, and also what my classmates might think of me depending on what decision I make. So I do research based on that. Google things, look at the maybe blog posts or news articles about sexual harassment, specifically in the university setting. I'll look at UK's policies. Maybe I talk to my therapist about it. And based on that research I've done, I then come to the solution that I should submit a complaint through the Office of Institutional Equity and Equal Opportunity at UK to give me some further support. So in that example, we go through the same exact process, but it's a little more complex on the research level, though you might not think of it as research. You are doing everyday research all the time. So, when it comes to Catherine Savini's Looking for Trouble, one of the main things I want you to take away from it is that she lists out 4 steps for finding problems and developing meaningful projects in academic settings and also in the real world. So her first step was noticing, and you can notice that the examples of everyday research that I just gave follow these 4 steps. So you notice, then you articulate a problem and its details, then you pose fruitful questions, and then identify what is at stake. And in your final projects in this class, you'll actually be taking that a step further and looking at what is a solution to this problem. So another thing that she brings up is this idea of integrative thinking versus schizosis. So integrative thinkers basically embrace complexity. They don't think of problems as having one solution. They don't think of them as having easy answers or easy solutions. They are okay with opposition. They're okay with being challenged. They're okay with developing new ideas, new alternatives to things. And this is a really important mindset to cultivate as academic thinkers and as college students and as adult people involved in the real world. Schizosis, on the other hand, is this kind of intellectual blindness. So it's a hardening of the mind against unwanted wisdom. It's selective blindness that allows certain information to be discounted or unexamined. And it's thinking within and acting within one offered frame. So you're kind of frozen in place, looking at one thing and refusing or being unable to look at anything else. Something related to this that I think it's really important to bring up, particularly when we're looking at issues of public concern that are very controversial, is confirmation bias. So confirmation bias is this tendency to search for, interpret, focus on, and remember information in a way that confirms your preconceptions. So most people have some sort of degree of confirmation bias, where when we see something and it challenges what we already believe, we discount it in some way. And this can go so far as to be in complete denial and actively saying that's not true despite seeing the proof right in front of us, or it could be on a smaller scale. But it's important to recognize any confirmation bias that you might have, particularly with your topic. You never want to ignore evidence just because it doesn't support your initial opinion. You should always be open to changing your mind about something, to sitting with complexity. As F. Scott Fitzgerald says, you should have or cultivate this ability to hold two opposing ideas in your mind at the same time and still be able to function. You want to make sure that you're looking at the whole picture, that you're embracing all of the possible solutions, all the possible ideas about whatever issue you decide to write about for this semester. And then this is an example Savini gives about schistosis, where this type of blindness was seen in training to become a doctor and losing sight of a whole person and just seeing them as pieces of a person that need to be fixed rather than operating from the viewpoint of, well, this is a whole entire person I need to be treating as a doctor. The same thing applies to when you're looking at an issue of public concern. You don't want to break it down into minute parts and then only look at those parts. You want to see the whole picture, every single aspect of whatever this issue is, not just maybe how it affects or what its consequences are in one specific realm, something like that. So basically, the most important step, I'd say, in Savini's article and in her process is articulating complex problems and posing fruitful questions. Those are going to come back in your final product in this class. They're not only just part of the process, but they're also going to appear in your final product. So that's why it is paramount that you start asking those complex questions and look at problems that are complex, not simplistic in nature, for this project, and I mean in your lives, really. So a few things to remember based on this PowerPoint and Savini's article moving forward. In this course, you, as I mentioned, will be arguing for a solution or multiple solutions for an issue of public concern that should be important to you. So it is important that you're finding a story or an issue that you feel you are uniquely positioned to tell, to research. Sorry if you hear my dogs barking in the background. They are unhappy that the neighbor kids are yelling about the snow. But you should find a story or an issue that is, close to your heart and one that will benefit a community that you are a part of. And we'll talk in maybe next week or the week after about how choosing topics is going to go. But you should ultimately be in a group that's writing about a topic that does matter in some way to you. It'll make, your life a lot easier if you end up in a topic that you actually care about. And then also we want to think about that you'll be collecting research in your discussion posts, their blog, I call them blogs here, but your discussion board posts. And this is the evidence that is going to support the argument you make. It's important to get the order correct. You're going to be finding the information about your chosen issue first and deciding what the best solution is after. This is what I was talking about with confirmation bias. Your argument should be informed by the research you've done, not confirming a bias that you already had. So that's something to be thinking about as well as we develop our topics in the next few weeks, is that you'll be focusing first and foremost on finding all of the possible answers to questions that are complex that you have about this issue, not operating from, well, this is already the best solution, I know it is, and now I'm just going to find research that only backs that up. Okay, so after this, you have a discussion board post to write and a little activity to respond to. So go ahead and do that. As always, if you have any questions, you can email me or send me a Canvas message. I hope you have a great week and enjoy the snow.